For those that are watching my video podcast, not just listening to it, I don't want any complaints or any controversy. So can I just say that my T-shirt is symbolizing the love I have for a species of bird. Thank you.
Shining a light on autism and life as an autistic person. Welcome to My Friend Autism, a podcast breaking down barriers, stigma, and misconceptions around autism while increasing understanding and acceptance of the autistic community. And now, here's your neurodivergent host, Orion Kelly.
Well, look who it is. Welcome, my friend. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. Welcome to my podcast, My Friend Autism. Thank you for watching my video podcast on my dedicated video podcast YouTube channel, Orion Kelly Podcasts, or thank you for listening to my podcast the way it was originally intended. And that's through the years, okay? It's an energy shot in your eardrum, my friend. So take it, all right? Nice. Now, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to work out if my voice is about to break. That's the first thing I want to do. It's not? Okay, good. So next step. What are we going to talk about on this podcast? Let's talk about something, well, is it something that people talk about? I don't know if it is. I want to talk about autistic shutdowns. Okay, so autistic meltdowns are pretty sexy. Autistic burnout, pretty sexy. Autistic rage, pretty sexy. Autistic shutdowns, not so much. But in fact, this is a crucial, regular, daily experience. It's part of the autism experience. Wow. Okay, so what are they? How are they different from meltdowns? So let's start at the start here. An autistic shutdown is just like an autistic meltdown, but it presents differently. Now, as you know, an autistic meltdown is usually like an external manifestation of dysregulation, of an autistic person who has broken through their threshold of capacity to deal with the things in life that dysregulate them. It would be ridiculous of me to say this is what they are because everyone's different, okay? But we're talking about, it could be sensory things. It could be too much interaction or communication and the challenges that brings up. It could be as a result of routine change. It could be as the result of, bullying, being treated differently. So you might, let's say you're a parent, carer, a loved one of an autistic child, you might deal with meltdowns a lot. And they can be embarrassing for you around other people. But what you don't realize, maybe you do, what you don't realize if you don't, and that's because you don't, so you would know you don't, is these things are absolutely horrible for the autistic person to go through. Imagine an autistic child going through an emotional and mental marathon in the space of a few minutes, and you think it's bad for you. So an autistic shutdown is no different to an autistic meltdown in what triggers it and the impact it has on the autistic person. It just looks like there's no impact because it's a period of withdrawal. It's a period of disengagement. Your brain has literally disconnected from life. Shutdowns, just like meltdowns, triggered by the things we've talked about. Sensory stuff, social stuff, overwhelming emotions. There's an exhaustion there dealing with life. And sure, meltdowns seem to be an external manifestations. Okay, well, a shutdown clearly it's more of an internal manifestation. Although, if you've gone from being you to being a dead shell, I would think that's still a pretty big external manifestation. I mean, if you've got an autistic friend, partner, kid, and they've gone from being in a period of dysregulation or, being at least to some degree physical, verbal, these types of things, and then they've become what looks like a blank shell, this is most probably an autistic shutdown, meaning they're going through something that is as bad for them as a meltdown. For you, it's like a walk in the park potentially. Maybe not. So differentiating between the two, autistic meltdowns are like an eruption, right? An overflow of emotions. They can lead to outbursts, just like a volcano. Does that make sense? There's an eruption, there's all this overflow, all this energy, and there's an eruption, there's an outburst. Now, shutdown's more internalized, and it can be a really intense overload or an overwhelm or a stress that will go unnoticed by most. Because, well, hang on, it's like, so what are you saying? You're imploding. That's right. Instead of exploding, you're imploding. But it couldn't be more intense. You think it's easy to be in a shutdown. It's not. So we're not doing it to take a break. We don't want to be in a shutdown either because there's things we want to do. Our brain is disconnected from that ability. It's like, no, I'm sorry. It's like when your computer goes, you know what? Sorry, mate. And it just shuts down on you, and you've actually got to wait for it to go through that whole process of shutting down and restarting when it wasn't supposed to shut down and restart. That's exactly the experience. If I could explain it to you from a point of view of helping you understand it, that would be the way I would explain it. So an autistic shutdown is equally as distressing for autistic people, and it absolutely impacts our quality of life. I mean, meltdowns impact our quality of life, and we've done meltdowns, but just briefly, whether it's a child or a partner, because you don't grow out of autism, so you can stop with the judgment. That's a big impact. It impacts your quality of life because you didn't want to be there in the first place. Many things got you there. No one saw them coming to help you. Many things got you there, and now you're there, and you are filled with so much shame, so much self-loathing and self-hatred. You just want to die. You don't want to be there, okay? When you're in it, it's uncontrollable. It is like I always liken it to it is like a seizure. Your brain has disconnected and created this result. And the quality of life goes down after because as autistic people, do you think this is something we're proud of or we like? There's a difference between, doing something intentionally and maliciously and having to go through traumatic experiences because that's how our different brain copes with the world around us. Big bloody difference. Of course it's going to affect our quality of life. We assume you're going to like us less. We hate ourselves even more. And there's a physical and mental and emotional toll too. If you have a meltdown or a shutdown, it's going to be tricky to try and navigate what other things you wanted to do that day. And again, that adds to it. So now we're useless. So let's talk about some examples. I want to try and give you some practical examples of how autistic shutdowns could manifest. So you can kind of get your head around, oh, okay, that's what that was. So avoiding eye contact during conversations because potentially there is a sensory input or an emotional input or a conversational input that has become too intense. And the way we can try and stay in the conversation but shut down the dysregulating things is to avoid eye contact. That actually could be a shutdown. If you're in a conversation or an interaction and the sensory input around you potentially has changed, or you're simply being dysregulated by things around you, by it could be other conversations, it could be the conversation. I do this a lot. I may want to stay in it, but it's like to them I've zoned out or lost interest. People will actually look at you and go, "What? Hello, I was talking to you." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still listening. You're not even looking at me." That's cool. My eardrums are in my ears, moron. You can't hear through your eyes, dude. And by the way, can I just a slight tangent here? I'm building up my set list for my Netflix comedy special, which I'll never get green lighted. But anyway, so have you ever noticed that when you want to hear something at nighttime, maybe if you're laying in bed, you open your eyes? What is that? You know, like you're laying in bed and something startles you and you have a listen, and then to listen better, you look in that direction and open your eyes wide. Did you hear that? And your eyes are kind of like looking up and around, like I feel like you're making your eyes go, listen, listen. And they're going, mate, we're eyes. This is a vision thing. No. What was that noise? If you're watching this podcast, I'm giving you comedy gold here. If you're listening, you're stuffed. What? Yeah, the podcast audio version, that would be a really boring part. But trust me, you guys should check out the video version. It was bloody hilarious. All right, anyway, let's go on to the next one. Another practical example of autistic shutdowns. Now listen, this cord on my headphones is rubbing to the point where I can hear it really loudly and it's starting to really agitate the crap out of me. Is there anything you can do to stop? There's an autistic person doing a podcast, guys. I mean, all right. So becoming non-verbal, non-speaking, whatever term makes you happy, or what I like to say, selectively mute. Right? When you become selectively mute court, mute, forget about it. Forget about the whole thing. Just rack off, okay? And when you become that in stressful situations, guess what? Shut down. How often, now we know there are autistic people who have different daily support needs, daily care needs. Some autistic people are non-speaking, right? They verbalize themselves in different ways. Cool. So in general terms, they can still become selectively mute in a shutdown. Right? They choose to not verbalize their thoughts or feelings, or let me take that back. They don't choose. They apparently choose. It's apparent to you they seem to have chosen to stop verbalizing themselves through any means possible. Right? That's, in my opinion, selectively mute. Right? And that happens in stressful situations, and that's a shutdown, most probably. And how often have you had that? It's the same with the eye contact thing. Something stressful has happened, and the autistic child, friend, partner, this happens to me all the time, just goes dead silent. Now, most people that are close to you will start to go, oh, something's not right here. You know what I mean? It's happened to me once, because I love rides and water slides and stuff. So it wasn't a fear thing, but it was a water slide where it was, those fully enclosed water slide, right? So it's like this giant bloody tube you go through, fully enclosed. But this particular one wasn't coloured, so you kind of get a bit of sunlight through. It was black, and it was legit black. So basically the point of it was like from start to finish, it was a completely dark tunnel. You couldn't see in it. You couldn't see out it. It was literally pitch black until you reached the end. And I thought this would be cool, right? This would be fun. Now, the fear thing is a different thing. This was a shutdown to me. I went from kind of like laughing and, making noises to complete silence. And I realized, looking back, the darkness and the sensory input of trying to work out, I'm flying, I'm moving, I'm on water, I'm in a thing, I'm about to hit water, I can't see anything, I can't really feel or see or hear much. Right, you're in your own little water world. I realized that had got my brain past its capacity, and I stayed on the ride, but I was completely quiet. Hit the water, got up, got out, nothing. So yeah, it's kind of a funny example, but it was selective. I selectively, selective mutism. Is that what they call it? I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong words because people are everyone's offended these days. Yeah, you can't not offend people if you say the wrong word, and I don't know the right words because, by the way, I'm autistic, so I was never given the rule book on life or the words to use or the way to, there was no, you guys might be born and there's something in your brain ingrained where you kind of know the rules and regulations and how to do, and that was not provided to me. So I just, my whole life, my middle name should be offensive. All right, another example. Retreating to a quiet space during a noisy event or gathering. Now, Autistic people do this prior to meltdown or shutdown. Absolutely, definitely. But sometimes when it's unavoidable or you've tried that, but it's this particular event or gathering, could be family and friends, could be a noisy event, a noisy venue, whatever it is. It could be got to the point where it's breached your threshold of capacity and you've fled. Whatever word you want to use, right? Bolted, run, fled, retreated, got out of there, found a quiet space. And by the way, you probably haven't taken the time to tell anyone. Now, this is especially scary for parents, carers of autistic kids. But this is factual. They refer to it as like wandering, or is it eloping? That doesn't make sense. Is it eloping? Anyway, now wandering can be a deceiving word, but they refer to it as that. Because you think wandering, you think slowly walking, ambling along. It's not. In this respect, when they say autistic kids wander at the beach or at pools and that's why they drown, they mean 1 minute they're there, the next minute they just bolt towards the water. They run, they sprint, right? They just go. That's wandering. So that's actually, that's a different thing. That is definitely not a shutdown. But unfortunately, there's statistics, especially around water safety, that shows you that it's a disproportionate percentage of drownings within autistic people based on this propensity to just bolt, wander, elope, whatever that is. It's one of those things that scares parents around bodies of water. Get it, totally get it. Another example of autistic shutdowns. You start to engage in repetitive behaviors, self-soothing actions. Okay, I refuse to provide you with examples because they come across generic regardless. Okay, so not examples, what I do. So I want to give you these generic examples like, oh, you're going to start rocking and flapping. And I did it when I said I wouldn't, but I was doing it in a sarcastic way. If I start to really skin pick, really get in there and skin pick my thumb or my fingers, or start to itch my scalp violently, or rub my neck or my face, these are repetitive behaviors I start to engage in meltdown and shutdown. And it's a massive trigger or red flag to see when it starts to happen. If I can catch it, I know. Sometimes my wife might bring it up before I even realize. You're really starting to rub your face. Are you okay? Would you like some quiet time, right? That's another one. I guess tuning out is a pretty good example, a practical example of autistic shutdowns. I'd rather give you more practical examples than, like textbook examples. So it could be your kid in class. It could be you, maybe you're studying, right? Maybe you're in a lecture. Maybe you're in a work meeting. You just tune out. Why? There's a lot of information. So information overload can be the enemy of autistic people. Autistic people love to deep dive into a particular topic, and that is information overload. But I'm talking about when there is information overload that the world is providing you, so you haven't necessarily sought it, right? So when you go to a work meeting, you don't control the amount of information or things they're going to talk about, or a class or a lecture, right? It just is what it is. And when you have that information overload, the autistic brain, although it loves it, at a point it's going to go, whoa, can't because again, this will never change. You don't grow out of it. Processing information is going to take time. And for most autistic people, it's going to take more time, than non-autistic people. We process differently, right? Not only because we have a different brain, but also at a different speed, in a different way. So information overload kills the processor. And our only real, defense mechanism is to tune out. People think we would just become absent, or, there's like, well, where are you looking? Where have you gone? Why are you daydreaming? That's another example. If your autistic partner or kid is like, no, I'm not going to do my favorite things. The things that I enjoy doing, I don't want to do them. Shut down. Like if you've lost interest in doing the activities, you know, the special interests, the passions, the things that you get enjoyment out of that bring you joy, that's a good sign of a shutdown. Because so your brain has gone, no, you're out. You're out of life, mate. I'm restarting. You're out. What, I can't even do things I like? No. And you won't want to. You won't want to because you're not, like, you're still shutting down and restarting. Loss of appetite can be a big one. For me, it's not so much a loss of appetite, but more like a lack of awareness, or I guess another thing would be a lack of interest in food. So when I'm stressed, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm dysregulated, I'm not interested in food, right? There's just no need for it. And also, when you feel like that, you can't eat. So these are practical signs when you look at an autistic child, an autistic partner, autistic friend. These are things to look out for. That doesn't make any sense. You haven't eaten since blah. You must be starving. No interest. Don't really care. Not interested. I'm good. Another example, when you start to fixate on something. So that is a form of escape, okay? Fixating on something can be a shutdown because you've escaped the world that dysregulated you, and you're just seemingly fixating on one thing. It doesn't have to be a topic or an interest or a passion or an activity. Just this fixate. And the world can't reach you because this is the thing you're escaping with, but there's still this shutdown reboot feeling. Another example of autistic shutdowns, feeling physically and emotionally exhausted after social interactions, social situations. So in social situations, you may have a meltdown. You may be triggered by all the things that come with interactions, communication, socializing, people, sensory, right? That's can easily put you into a meltdown. But I find too, an autistic person might be involved in something and they'll get home and their parents or carers or partner or friends or family will be like, what's wrong with you? You seemed fine. You seem to do really well at that interaction, at that event, at that thing. But now you look like you're going to die. You look like you just want to sleep, right? I don't understand. You were so good there. What's the problem? This is an exhausting experience for autistic people. Communication, interaction challenges, sensory issues. There's so many different factors involved in navigating these situations. They are going to leave us physically and emotionally exhausted and drained. And that is not usually a tipping point for a meltdown, though it can be, because if you're going to get pushed again past that point, you're going to fight back. But usually that's the reason why the autistic person in your life is physically and emotionally exhausted after what you would class as seemingly harmless interactions where we seemingly did well. That's a shutdown. Too much. We did our best, too much. Experiencing heightened anxiety in unfamiliar environments can lead to shutdowns. Self-explanatory. Autistic people, we like routine, sameness, structure. Unfamiliar places, unfamiliar environments, it sets off all sorts of triggers. Struggling to initiate or maintain conversations will often lead us to withdrawal rather than meltdown. Right? So, God, I hate starting conversations. Maintaining them is even harder. You don't necessarily melt. You don't, like, in the middle of nowhere, start to have an autistic meltdown around someone you're trying to have a conversation with, but you may withdraw. You may just walk away or go, you know what, I can't do this and I'm just going to hide. It's a shutdown. Avoiding touch, avoiding physical contact. These are usually because you have sensory sensitivities. But as autistic people, this is fluid. Your sensory sensitivities aren't the same, minute by minute, day by day. They alter based on your level of capacity, your level of dysregulation. So you can class that as a shutdown. You might be overwhelmed by changes in routine, unexpected events. These are big things. Changes in routine, unexpected things that pop up can definitely cause meltdowns, but they can also cause shutdowns. Experiencing difficulty processing verbal instructions. Definitely shutdowns to me. Oh, and what's a shutdown? Yep, this is too much. Too many instructions, too confusing, becoming overwhelmed, processing is too hard, I'm out. That's very different to a meltdown, which I could still have. I mean, those bloody flat pack box things with the instructions. Who wrote these instructions? They weren't a human from planet Earth, I can tell you that. Who wrote these instructions? Forget about first. Like, English isn't their 100th language. This isn't even like a cultural thing. This is not from this earth. These don't know. These aren't the instructions. And they're not even instructions. You could call them instruct. That's it. They're instruct. There's not enough to call them instructions. Not even instruction. They're instruct. That's it. Bloody stupid thing. And they've got the stickers, right? Half of them aren't even on anymore. Where did these stickers come from? The same place, George Costanza bought the wedding invitations? Because they're bloody horrible. They don't. What's happening here? What do you mean A and D? There's no A and D. There's Z. And if it's A to D, why is there 3 Ds? Which D? You see what I'm saying? And there's... Oh, God, help me. Yeah, not interested. Have you had an autistic person in your life, or as an autistic person, have you, even though you like connecting with people digitally and like social media platforms, have you just felt I'm out? You can't do it? There's been periods where you've just completely gone dark, gone cold. You've just withdrawn. That can be a shutdown. When you've reached a peak and you just can't deal. So you might go, I just can't deal anymore. Yeah, but if you're autistic, that's a shutdown. When you have difficulty processing emotions, shutting down is a great coping mechanism for the autistic brain. Too many emotions, too hard to process, too hard to identify. We have trouble, don't forget, alexithymia. We have real trouble, not only like understanding, working out, processing, kind of conveying what you're feeling, the feelings of others, but ourselves. So it's one thing to say we know how we feel. It's another thing to say we know how to convey how we feel. Much easier in this situation for the brain to go, look, I've tried. I'm out. I'm shutting down. Because emotions are hard. Sensory overload. I think I've talked about this enough, but I just want to be clear. Sensory overload is so different for autistic people. I mean, each individual autistic person. People go, oh, it's going to be noisy places. Okay, great. Crowded places as well. Places you've never been to. Places you don't like. Places that have weird smells. Right? Sensory stuff, too many people. Okay. But it's all the senses. If it's called sensory overload, it can include all the senses. People are always so focused on a couple, like noise, sound. Yeah, cool. That's a big one. It's an absolute big one. But everyone is so different. Some people, there's real sensitivity to sight stuff, to seeing things. And it's, for me, I hate. See, different smells can really trigger me. Sounds definitely, but different smells can really trigger me. Okay, but there's there's the taste. People never talk about this. Like, you don't think you can shut down at the dinner table because something that you've been given for dinner, either looking at it is a shutdown because of the sensory overwhelm your brain has come up with, or actually when you try it and realize this not only feels weird, but tastes weird. and you just stop. You can't eat anymore. Not fussy, not picky, autistic. Okay? See, fussy or picky is I don't eat pumpkin, right? In fact, I that's not what I do. I love pumpkin soup. I just don't want the pumpkin cooked as a vegetable and served up to me because it's even worse than like a potato. It's mushy and squishy and gaggy, right? That's different. But picky is I don't eat green vegetables. No, I don't eat green vegetables if you're going to cook them within an inch of their life till they're so wet and soggy that they fall off my fork. I don't eat that green crap. You want to serve me some fresh, crunchy beans? Let's do it. Right? There's a difference. Sensory stuff. Yeah, your kids and your partner, they're not actually that fussy or picky. Okay? They're making decisions based on their different brain. Feeling disconnected or detached from the surroundings, the things you're a part of, that could be a sign of a shutdown. So you shouldn't always feel disconnected or detached from particular surroundings and settings, okay? But you clearly are going to during periods of stress and shutdown. Couple more examples. Let's talk about triggers then, okay? So a couple more examples, then I want to talk about some common triggers. Engaging difficulty. Not a word. Don't know why I said it. Not cutting it out, though. You know I don't cut out these podcasts. These podcasts are free. They're free-balling, my friend. Experiencing difficulty making decisions or processing information, that can lead to shutdowns. And finally, when you start to lean into your rituals or your repetitive tasks, movements, activities as a way to regain control back during these triggering, dysregulating situations, that can often be a sign of a shutdown. All right. My brain is telling me, Orion, aren't the triggers and the examples the same? Probably true. But not. So I want to be, let's do a slightly more nuanced, okay? So let's go through some that are going to seem like we've talked about this, but I think it's still important. Okay, so you kind of get the idea what they look like. What causes them? I just smacked my microphone. Worst thing you do. Anyway, what causes them? Okay. Well, we know sensory stuff does, yeah? We've got that. I'm not going to go through that again. It just doesn't make any sense. I've talked about it. You get it. There's sensory stuff. All the senses. Stop just talking about sound. All the senses. Another example, another trigger, social exhaustion. So extended periods of that kind of social interaction, or even just having to navigate complex social situations. That might only last a few minutes. Trust me, that can drain your battery dead and lead to shutdowns. Routine. Hello, my old friend. Unexpected changes to your daily schedule, your routine, disruptions to the routines that you use as a daily basis of maintaining regulation, changes to those. They're going to distress you. They can definitely trigger shutdowns. Emotional stress. Okay, what are we talking about here? How do these trigger autistic shutdowns? Okay, so let's talk about emotions. I don't know what kind of emotions you feel, but from my point of view as an autistic person, my emotions have a pretty small repertoire and I would say in one word, intense. Right? I'm either happy or I'm angry as hell or I'm sad or I'm feeling, what else would I don't know what else I'd feel. I don't know, we'll go with those. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously. But I don't feel them like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit happy. No. I'm either like really happy right now or I'm so sad or so angry or so frustrated that I'm just riddled with anxiety. That's it. I'm not, if someone goes, are you feeling anxious? I go, no, I'm not feeling anxious. I'm riddled with anxiety. So, it's intense. This becomes overwhelming. Autistic brains process emotions differently. There are autistic people, I'm assuming, maybe that experience all manner of emotions. I don't feel I do. I feel like I experience a few emotions really intensely. I don't know. Maybe my insight is the problem And that will make sense. Maybe my insight and the emotions I feel is the problem with me being able to explain to you that I experience more. Either way, if you're going to experience emotions more intensely more often, it's going to lead to shutdowns. Your brain has to find ways to cope. It's a different brain. It works differently. It operates differently. It runs the show, okay? Cognitive overload. This is a big one. This is a big trigger. Okay, so what's cognitive? Well, it's our brain, yeah? That's the only part of us that's autistic. We don't have an autistic nose, right? We don't have an autistic body. We have an autistic brain. Now, the brain can make it seem like other parts of us are like, oh, yeah, I could tell you're autistic by how you talked or by how you looked. That's actually true. That could actually be true. But again, but for the autistic brain, none of that would be there. So cognitive overload is massive, processing large amounts of information. Or for me, personally, complex tasks. So I like complex things, complex thoughts, complex things to tackle, but it's the facing of the complex tasks that I can find very triggering. The overload overwhelms me. I talked about before with like whether it's at school or uni or meetings or instructions. So I know I can do this thing, but the overload of the thing causes me to shut down prior to doing the thing, even though eventually I will be able to do the thing. But I can't get past that initial cognitive overload. It just overwhelms my cognitive resources. The idea of the task. I hope that makes sense. And the autistic brain quite often, well, okay, let me start again. My autistic brain quite often doesn't look at it like I'm going to climb Everest and I'm going to do that in stages and stop at camps and rest and here's how it's going to go. My autistic brain would go, would you like to climb Everest? My brain's going to go, holy, I've got to get from the bottom to the top. How can I climb Everest? You see what I'm saying? My brain doesn't go, oh, well, I guess I could if I trained hard, had the right equipment, the right guides, and because clearly there are, base camps, there are camps, right? My brain, maybe you're different, but my brain doesn't, it skips that part and just looks at I've got to get to the top of Everest. And that's where that cognitive overload can cause shutdowns. The sensory sensitivities and the sensory overload, I guess the only thing I want to add is people never talk about the stuff that isn't the kind of caricature, like the loud sounds or the weird bright lights, right? Autistic people can lose their crap over putting on the wrong T-shirt or the wrong clothing, the feel of their socks, their shoes being too tight. It's not just about lights and sounds, textures, tastes. This tactile thing can be bloody distressing. It leads to shutdowns, and it's way more important than you think. People are focusing on, autistic person, are you? No worries. You want to come into the office? Just bring your noise-cancelling headphones. Oh, thanks, mate. Welcome along. You're going to come to the office tomorrow, are you? Okay, cool. Don't forget to bring oxygen, you moron. Right? It's the uniform. Is the uniform going to create sensitivities? Is your chair, right? The type of shoes you have to wear. The feeling of things. So we're not talking about just some standard dude. We're talking about an autistic person, a medically diagnosed, recognized neurodevelopmental disability. That's the fact, Jack. All right, that was weird. Communication challenges are going to trigger shutdowns. When we have difficulties navigating communication, expressing ourselves, understanding others, navigating the nuances of interactions and communications in a neurotypical world. It frustrates us. It annoys us. It agitates us. It drains us. It exhausts us. It triggers shutdowns. Clearly, these communication challenges are going to present more often with shutdowns in social situations. Honestly, when I have communication challenges with my own safe people, so your safe people being like your family or your partner, your friend, whoever, I reckon I'd more meltdown on their ass. My brain is so agitated and disconnected from these communication challenges with my safe people, because it's like my safe people are supposed to be perfect. Autistic people think their safe people are supposed to be perfect and just know everything because they've been told it once or they live with you and that's their job. Now, I think it's prudent of me to say that's unfair on our safe people. But just so you safe people know, it's not just that person. And, how dare you be my safe person and not know exactly what I was trying to say or do? And so that's my little relatable rant there for you. And the fact of the matter is, well, no, they shouldn't, because you're both trying to disconnect. Sorry, you're both disconnecting and trying to connect. Different brains. Whether they love you or not has got no relevance to that matter. Unpredictable environments. Don't you hate unpredictable, uncontrollable environments? I hate when I can't understand or control the factors of things. Like you've got to factor in things. Anxiety, big time. Now, heightened anxiety, what's it going to do? It's going to trigger you, right? Your brain is going to go, this is making me so anxious. This is so triggering. I'm out. Your brain is going to shut down. Again, why? It wants to regain a sense of control, a sense of regulation. Just like a computer, it can no longer function. It needs to regain the ability to function as a computer, so it has to shut down and restart. I know it's more a generalized, crude way of putting it, but it's the best way to put it just to kind of help people understand. Emotional triggers, people think, oh, well, you've already talked about that. Well, I haven't talked about emotional triggers that are things like conflict. Have I? Oh, there you go. Yeah, thanks for your executive directing here, my friend, but how about you just go ahead and shut up and listen to the podcast? Excuse me. My apologies. I'm just going to have a quick drink. I apologize. I don't. I'm just saying it. Oh, God, that's good. Oh, help me, Jesus. That's fantastic. That's some good water. Emotional triggers. So situations, stimuli, stimulus, conflict, hate conflict, criticism. It doesn't matter if you think it's good, it's well-placed, or it's constructive. The autistic brain doesn't see it like that. The autistic brain looks at things black and white, right or wrong, logical. Okay, so criticism is not good. It's not right. It's wrong. There's right and wrong. Okay, so criticism means I'm wrong. It's black and white. Simple as that. Good or bad. Okay, criticism makes me feel bad. Means I'm bad. I'm wrong. That's how the autistic brain is a logical-based brain. I don't care if you want to make an argument or think constructive criticism is good. Good for you. I'm trying to help you with an autistic brain here, guys. It isn't. Criticism, rejection, conflict. You might think, what? That's all autistic people do. They go around and they're like rejecting everything and criticizing everything. And there's like bringing up conflict. All they're doing is saying things that offend people. Yeah, that's what I'd expect to hear from a neurotypical person. No, the last thing we want is conflict, right? Our whole life is around being rejected by people for being different. I think we want to avoid that if we can. That's not what it's about. It goes back to the brain, guys. We're not being offensive or criticizing. If something is right or wrong or good or bad, well, it's logical to us that we should point it out or say it. It doesn't make any sense. But to me, this isn't an emotional thing. Oh, but it hurts people's feelings. Yes, but you're talking about someone who has a stronger emotional part of their brain. This is an autistic brain talking. Hello, can you hear me now? It's coming from a logical part, a stronger logical brain. It's logical to me that the nice thing to do would be to tell you you're wrong and here's why you're wrong and here's what's wrong about it. Right? Or, I'm going to reject something because you've asked me and no. Well, what do you want me to say? Oh, I'd love to, and you're really great to offer me that, but I'm going to have to pass this time around. What the hell does that mean? It can only be, by the way, if you're going to say stuff like that, say it in that voice because that's as cheesy and fake as you're going to get. No, I don't want that. I hate. What do you mean you think I might like it? I don't want it. I've never wanted it. What are you asking me for? Seriously. These kind of things, I mean, they can evoke strong emotional responses. Really? Did you pick that up with me? What's going to happen? It's going to trigger shutdowns, my friend. It's going to trigger I mean, I'm starting to rub my face. This is not going well. Are we finished? Can I go? Are we finished? We're not. Damn it. How quickly can I do the rest? Can I just speed through the rest? Because I've had enough. Fatigue or overwhelm, being tired or overwhelmed. That lowers our resilience. So multiple stresses, right, start to overwhelm us. They wear us down. They lower our resilience. Why? Because our capacity to reach stresses and demands only has so far to go. If the stresses and demands go past our capacity to reach them, our resilience goes down. And what happens? You become susceptible to shutdowns and meltdowns. It's no different to illness, right? You know how someone says, oh, well, you're run down, that's why you caught that flu. Or not, that's the wrong way of putting it. You're run down, that's why you caught that virus or bug or whatever. You see what I'm saying? Like, well, yeah, that's right. This is the same principle. By the way, I swear I heard someone on TV or something say that, oh, they had the flu all summer. Like, okay, so for starters, you can't have the flu all summer, okay? That's not how the flu works, my friend. And I know. I mean, I've had the flu, and I mean influenza A. By the way, a strain that was killing people at the time in my country. I had it then. I was in hospital for like 2 weeks. Okay, I know the real flu. Yeah, you can't have the flu for 3 months. So, like, you might have had like a virus or something, but you know, oh God help me. I'm sorry, I get ranty about the flu because I actually had it and it almost killed me, legitimately almost killed me. I mean, like it ended up giving me pneumonia and what else? I cracked a rib from coughing. Right, that's how bad the pneumonia. Anyway, so I just hate. I'm moving on. What was I talking about? Oh, that's right, fatigue or overwhelm. We've got it leads to shutdowns. Clearly, hypersensitivity can lead to shutdowns. So it's not just about sensory sensitivity, hypersensitivity. These are things that some autistic people experience. Some experience hypo, so an under experience of sensory stuff. Like you don't feel pain as much, right? Where other people really, they can hear, they'll go, I hear lights, right? I hear lights. So, and other people are like, what are you talking about, right? Or that smell will kill me. And I do this. Everyone else in the house is like, there is no smell, man. I'm sorry. There's no smell. But no one can smell even a whiff of it. And for me, it's like, this will end me. I must know where it is and what it is, right? It's one of those weird things. So this hypersensitivity definitely can cause meltdowns and shutdowns. Now, it can cause shutdowns because you're like, well, I can't function here anymore. I'm going to have to, sorry. You can't get rid of that smell or find it for me. I'm going to have to go somewhere else. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to bed. Being flooded by emotions. Now, this doesn't have to be negative. Positive, negative, doesn't matter. Emotional overwhelm is going to impact our regulation and lead to shutdowns. Executive functioning challenges. I say this every time, just so you guys understand. Executive functioning is a set of cognitive skills. Planning, organizing, task, prioritizing, blah, 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 right? It's a set of cognitive skills. Okay, what is autism? It's a different brain. Where do cognitive skills come from? Oh, that's right, the brain. And how do you get them? You develop them. Oh, yeah. And what's autism again? Oh, that's right. It's a neurodevelopmental disability. Hello? Executive functioning challenges are stock standard. They're out of the box, features. They're not add-ons. They're features. You get them for free, yeah? Being autistic. They're going to start to overwhelm us, especially when there's a demand for the planning, the organising, the tasks. When it just becomes just relentless. I'll often shut down. You know what? There's just too many things on today, so I'm going to go and you know what? I've got one appointment today. All right, no worries. Let's do it. Then my brain's like, nah, I can't move until my appointment, or I have my appointment. Like I got to go the rest of the day to do stuff, and that might have triggered you. rejection and bullying. I mean socially, by the way. So whether you're a kid or an adult, being rejected, being excluded, being bullied, harassed, they have a profound impact on autistic people. They affect our self-esteem, our self-worth. They are daily experiences for autistic kids. Adults might be able to hide. It is unacceptable, but it's factual. It is a daily experience for autistic kids to be bullied by their peers. Peers as in other kids. If you think that doesn't happen, you're wrong. And it's horrible. It's bloody horrible. Environmental changes can also trigger shutdowns. You know, when you've got to like move to a new location for anything, it could be for a local group, a meetup, sport, work, for some, a house. Or maybe there's just a disruption to your regular arrangements. Just a mere disruption to where you sit, where you live, where you train, where you play, where you meet up. That could absolutely trigger shutdowns. The discomfort, the sensory discomfort, I feel like I've talked about. And I want to make sure I'm ticking all these boxes here. And we've definitely talked about the cognitive overwhelm. What's some other things? That's right. We haven't talked about sleep. Okay, sleep and autism is really tricky. This is a topic by itself, so I'm not going to go into it here because it's absolutely a topic by itself. Long story short, sleep and autism don't often mix. It's a tricky situation. It's complicated. Poor sleep quality or sleep disruptions or bad sleep patterns, they absolutely will exacerbate all the challenges of being autistic. Your brain needs rest. So your sensory sensitivities, your emotional regulation, your ability to regulate yourself, all cut way down with bad sleep. That increases your susceptibility. That wasn't a word, by the way. Well, I was trying to say susceptibility, but I said it fast. Good for you, aren't you precious? That can lead to shutdowns. This is a big one. I'm basically done. I've got two more. Performance pressure. How about this? You know when you feel pressured to meet things? Everyone feels this. As autistic people, we feel pressured for things that you wouldn't even think about. Like expectations to be normal. So for you, it's not an expectation. It's easy to do. Expectation to perform tasks a certain way. What do you mean you can't do this? What do you mean? Expectations to live up to a certain standard. All these things are measured only by neurotypical standards. That creates stress, anxiety. It triggers shutdowns. This can happen in the workplace, right? This can happen at school. For kids or adults, doesn't matter. This pressure to perform sometimes means you completely shut down and have no ability to perform anything. Well, how's that helping anyone? It's not. Traumatic experiences can be really triggering for everyone. For autistic people, past traumatic experiences can contribute to not only your heightened anxiety, but also can really trigger shutdowns when things similar or even just reminders of past traumatic experiences arise. Does that make sense? When these past traumatic experiences pop up, happen again, or pop up in a way of just remembering, that absolutely can lead to a shutdown. More so than a meltdown. It's like something clicked, you just remembered something. You heard a song, met a person, remembered a person, or something happened to you and it reminded you of a traumatic experience. And it's like you just die on the inside. So that, my friends, is my rundown on autistic shutdowns. Now, if you want to learn more, you might want to check out my videos and my podcasts on meltdowns, on autistic burnout. I have a playlist on my main YouTube channel. So Orion Kelly YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Autism and Dysregulation, and it's got all the videos on this. Meltdowns, burnouts, shutdowns. So it's a great playlist for you to send to your family or your friends or someone you might want to kind of get more info on. What are you talking about?
My Friend Autism with Orion Kelly. Catch up on all the episodes at orionkelly.com.au.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Your support is amazing. So I hope this podcast has helped you in some way. If it hasn't, get stuffed. I don't care. That's not true. Anyway, why end it on that? It's the worst way to end it. I don't know what my problem is. I'm sorry. I'm just going to shut down if you don't mind. But nevertheless, thank you for watching or listening to my podcast. Until the next episode of My Friend Autism. I don't know. Thanks, I guess.
You've been listening to My Friend Autism with Orion Kelly. To join the conversation, get in touch with Orion and binge all the podcasts, blogs and videos, visit orionkelly.com.au.